Hey everybody, Brian Zane here, and welcome to the Raw Review here on Wrestling with Regret. And folks, tonight's episode was kind of trash. The new Women's Tag Team Champions open the show. First you have Charlotte Flair, who brings out her friend and tag team partner Asuka. Asuka putting herself over and Charlotte. But before Charlotte can broach the topic of challenging Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship, suddenly Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler interrupt, and Nia says that Charlotte's got a robotic voice, and then she says, you know, like Santa Claus, we have a list of our own, but we don't give out coal. And Shayna's like, yeah, we give beatings. And then Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose show up, and more bad promos here. They say that Shayna looks like Rudolph after a nose job, and that Nia looks like a reindeer without the antlers. And then the champions will suddenly make a match, and they say, yeah, you two teams should wrestle now. And they do, and thank goodness, because I could not bear one more minute of those god-awful promos. So the match begins, and the champions are doing commentary throughout, and they start calling Mandy and Dana the sexy muscle friends. It's actually a pretty appropriate name, I think. And then you've got Charlotte being thoroughly interviewed about coming back and everything by the announcers. Also, at one point, she refers to Dana as her former protege, which I'm glad that there's a bit of continuity there. I'm glad she brought that up. I almost forgot about that. Anyway, near the end, Dana kind of holds her own against Shayna, but ultimately she gets caught and falls victim to the Kirifuda clutch. The former champs win, and then suddenly Mandy and Dana just get up and dump them out of the ring. So great. Nobody looks good. After the Hurt Business harass yet another stagehand backstage who's wearing a New Day shirt, it's time for the VIP lounge where the guys celebrate their big tag team championship victory from the night before. You get this moment here, planting some more seeds where Cedric cuts off Shelton mid-promo to put the rest of the group over. You can see Shelton's kind of miffed by being interrupted once again, similar to the finish from the tag title match, and Bobby's kind of trying to talk him down and everything. Lashley says there's not a man alive who can beat him for the U.S. Championship. They start to do a photo op with the belts and everything, and suddenly R-Truth pops up behind them with the 24/7 title, and sure enough, out come the gaggle of jobbers who chase him around the ring and everything. Haha, very silly. Then suddenly, after all that, the Hardy Bros, that's the new name for Jeff Hardy and Riddle, coming out. The chase continues behind them in the background, which actually probably, that part of everything got the biggest laugh out of me, was that they kept the gag going as that was going on. But then, you know, they're definitely leaning into the Riddle as stoner character with the stuff he was talking about to the Hurt Business. And then Jeff Hardy wraps things up saying, a man's character is the only real criterion of wealth, and that we're going to fight the Hurt Business with faith. Like, okay, that was a quality interruption there. This whole first part of the show has just been bizarre with the interruptions so far. Drew Gulag takes on Angel Garza next. We haven't seen him wrestle on Raw in quite a while, but we did see a few of those little promos or vignettes where he's talking to the camera like it were a woman. And so he's being interviewed by Sarah Schreiber, where he says he wants to give all the women of the world the gift of Garza this holiday season, and he wants her to interview him again under the mistletoe. Charming or creepy? Anyway, this match is pretty short and sweet. Garza wins with the wing clipper after a couple of minutes. A good return showing for Garza, if a little brief. Backstage, AJ Styles is asked what he thought about The Miz cashing in the night before in the TLC match, and he's hot about it. He says he's going to be on Miz TV because he wants to hear what The Miz has to say. So we go to that now. Miz TV with special guest AJ Styles. The Miz apologizes to his family, first and foremost, for failing to successfully cash in, but AJ has no time for the Miz's words, calls him the biggest idiot on the planet for essentially ruining both of their title opportunities in one fell swoop. The Miz gets up and he has a very emotional promo, how he always wants respect, and that, nobody's respected him, but maybe if he regains the championship after cashing in again a decade after doing it the first time, he can get that respect. So the Miz issues a heartfelt apology to AJ, and to make it up for him, he wants to offer him a role in the next Marine movie, and you see this photoshopped poster appear on the screen with Omos in it and a very, very tiny AJ Styles, which I got a laugh out of. And there's also a bit of a problem with the idea of a Marine sequel with The Miz in it, and if you watch my Marine 6 review, you'll know why. But then Omos points out that it was technically John Morrison who cashed in the briefcase the night before, not The Miz. Morrison and AJ are about to come to blows when The Miz suddenly has this revelation. Because he wasn't the one, he's Mr. Money in the Bank, and he didn't cash it in, then he has the right, by technicality, to reclaim the briefcase. So as that's going on, suddenly Drew McIntyre comes out, and he wants to talk about The Nightmare After TLC, which is a poem that allegedly he and Keith Lee and Sheamus came up with over several rounds of drinking that night after TLC and everything. And then as they're reading the poem from their scraps of paper, Sheamus and Keith Lee kind of pop into different things. They each say their rhymes, and they just give up because they didn't come with a finish, and so they go into the ring and start fighting each other. We get this moment where Sheamus wants to hit a bro kick, but suddenly AJ kicks Keith Lee into Sheamus, and so that starts to set off, do you hit me on purpose, even though everyone knows that it was an accident, and Drew saw it and tries to convince me about that. And, you know, it's the whole thing. I hate that trope of like incidental contact and suddenly heads are gonna roll. I'm gonna kick somebody's ass because they nudged into me. Like, these guys are such sensitive babies that a slight brush on the shoulder means we gotta come to blows. And so Drew tries to play peacemaker, and that's kind of the tone for the rest of the evening with those guys. So yeah, the segment like had a couple of like interesting moments. Like, again, the Marine 7 poster I got a laugh out of. But besides that, the rest of it was just kind of T-Bar Retribution takes on Ricochet. Very similar story to what we've been seeing with the last couple of weeks with Rico and Retribution. In this case, he continues to fight the odds and fight a couple other members on the outside of the group. Even gets his hands on Mustafa Ali when he gets a little bit too close, talking too much trash. Ultimately, T-Bar wins with a big slam that gets on the microphone and says, you know, Retribution is not your enemy. We are your ally. You can join us or face extinction. So that's pretty much that. So join us next week for the latest installment of how many times can Ricochet get beat up by Retribution before he inevitably does not join the group. Up next, Riddle and Jeff Hardy take on Bobby Lashley and MVP of the Hurt Business. At one point, Jeff is knocked off the top turnbuckle and dumped onto the steel steps on the outside. He almost gets counted out, but then rolls back in slowly. But he doesn't like roll toward his corner. He has this opportunity to just kind of roll toward Riddle and tag in, but instead he just rolls toward Lashley in the ring. Like, why did he do that? Riddle with a big hot tag near the end. He goes flying outside to take out Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. Hardy avoids Bobby Lashley's spear, goes for the twist of fate, but Lashley catches him and gets the Hurt Lock locked in, and Jeff taps out, and that's the match. Everything coming up Millhouse for the Hurt Business. We see AJ Styles arguing with Miz and Morrison as they get ready for their 6-man tag match against Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee and Sheamus. No one's getting along either side of this matchup here. And then we see Elias and Jackson Ryker in the ring. Elias doesn't even get a chance to play any music until Lucha House Party cut him off. So we have a match with Ryker and Grand Metalik. And as the match begins, Elias gets on the top rope, begins to play, just jams a song while the match is going on, which is a pretty big boss move, I have to say. Then all of a sudden, he gets Hurricane Rana off the top rope by Metalik, and that distraction allows Ryker to end up winning the match in the end there. So the biggest takeaway for me is Elias should play guitar while the matches are going on all the time. It's time for Randy Orton to address what happened the night before in the Firefly Inferno match. He says he's been called a lot of synonyms for crazy in his life, and that match he was able to prove everybody right when he burned Bray Wyatt alive. He can still see it, he can still smell it. He says the Fiend is no more, he's the evil son of a bitch who took him out. But suddenly, we've got the lights cutting out, very familiar of the Fiend. Could this be him? No. Instead, it's Alexa Bliss on a swing set in the ring now. It's Alexa's playground, and the swing set says Moment of Bliss on it. And so Alexa basically says, you know, she makes a lot of burning puns and stuff, and then she says that, you know, Bray sunk through the mat and into the earth, and says that Bray is home, but he might come back someday, and if he does, it'll be unlike anything you've ever seen before. And that's how we end that segment. So finally, something interesting happening on this show. I mean, I've been saying for a while now, where's Alexa Bliss been all this time in the build toward the Inferno match? And, you know, to have her come back here, I think is good timing. So to have Alexa show up and explain, oh, the Fiend is going to be gone for a while, but he will come back soon, just you wait and see. Like, that adds a sense of foreboding. You can see the look on Orton's face. He looks kind of, you know, unsure of what to make of that. So, like, you know, we're still like going to get this happening down the line, and whatever incarnation of Bray Wyatt we're going to get next, who really knows? We've seen a lot of them so far, and you know, what's one more going to kill us? The women's tag champs are in action in a non-title match as Asuka and Charlotte take on Peyton Royce and Lacey Evans. Get a pre-match promo with Peyton and Lacey. You can barely understand because they're not talking into the mic as well as he keeps moving around, but you do see Peyton as Lacey goes out first. Peyton turns back to the interview and says, I'm the one who got us this match. It was me, and takes all the credit for it. So wow, we're sowing seeds of dissent in this tag team we don't even care about. Kind of a shorter match here. Peyton and Lacey have a hard time communicating at first with trading blind tags. We do see a bit of teamwork from them, but ultimately it falls short. Charlotte makes Peyton tap out to the figure 8, and that's that. We get a video package highlighting Titus O'Neil's recent charity work, and then it's time for our main event, a 6-man holiday street fight. Key word there, street fight, as Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, and Keith Lee take on AJ, Miz, and Morrison. Here's the thing, they build as a street fight, but you wouldn't believe it because they've got the weapons around and everything, but they're hardly ever used. It's a standard 6-man tag format. Like, they're on the apron, they're tagging, and they're doing the shit. It's like, why isn't it a tornado match? Why isn't it just a big brawl? Like, that's what a street fight should be. But no, there has to be decorum in this 6-man tag team match. We get some teamwork with like Lee and Sheamus that almost evolves into fighting, but Drew again playing peacemaker. Sheamus dumped off the top rope and through a table. Then we get this awkward exchange between the other teammates as Sheamus is brought back into the ring. What is happening in this street fight? So minutes later, we finally get some weapons involved when AJ starts swinging around a candy cane kendo stick and there's a table spot. Like, where was any of this during the match itself? Why have we taken so long to get here? Ultimately, Lee hits The Miz with the Spirit Bomb, winning and ending this street fight that had maybe 2.5 weapon spots across 6 guys in this thing. After the bell, though, Sheamus hits a brogue kick onto Lee, and Drew is livid. He can't imagine why Sheamus would do that after he vouched for him. I told him you were cool! As we fade to black. So again, driving more of the wedge between these friends in Sheamus and Drew, leading to the inevitable breakup and subsequent title match, but we're just trudging along until we get to that point. My grade for this week's Raw is an F+. It's really disappointing that after a very strong showing with TLC, they followed up with such a weak episode of Raw. And I know it's the holidays and a lot of stuff gets kind of phoned in creatively, but this just felt like the worst. Like some of the worst promos I've heard all year, matches that really didn't mean anything, and these segments that felt like repeats of things we've already seen for like up to the last 3 months, it feels like. The only thing that I thought was interesting was the Orton, Alexa Bliss stuff, and the other things I've listed in the pros are just things that I gotta pop out of, but like ultimately contribute nothing to the grade of this show. It's like other things I got a bit of a smirk out of, but everything else is just like, I don't know, this is a really weak episode. I don't know what else to say. Like, it was hard to get through, except for 1 or 2 bright shining points. I mean, that main event, again, how can you advertise a street fight and go to the trouble of having all these holiday weapons and none of them get used? Because all of a sudden, we gotta respect the 6-man tag rules and this no DQ, no countout match. Like, what the fuck? But what did you all think of Raw this week? Let me know in the comments section below. And just a heads up, there will not be a Raw review next week. I'm taking all next week off from those nightly shows. So I'll see you again with a Raw review, the first one of 2021. Until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.